let me start by thanking the honorable ministers, the government of Indonesia, and development partners for inviting us here today. It is really my pleasure to join you with this important dialogue. We have been part of previous versions and initiatives along these lines, and we see this dialogue evolving in a very positive direction. And this really reflects Indonesia's commitment and international leadership in showing how it is possible to blend not just finance, but really to combine significant progress on an economic front with greater and greater environmental sensitivity and really innovative solutions to combine both development and environmental management. We at the World Bank have recently ourselves adjusted our vision to reflect goals of reducing poverty in a sustainable way, but also to do so in a livable planet, a planet that we all share and that we will leave for future generations. This is a global challenge, but as I said, Indonesia exemplifies how it is possible to combine those two objectives. When we look at this country, over the past 2 decades, this country has more than quadrupled its GDP. That is a remarkable track record of success, and improves the lives of millions of people in this very large and heavily populated country. At the same time, you start to see the stress that it places on the environment, and Indonesia has been putting itself on the map with initiatives such as the mangroves. Minister Luhut mentioned that, but also arresting deforestation, taking care of its oceans. You see it in this beautiful island that we are meeting here. These are all good examples, and Indonesia is also at the forefront of trying to bring the global South together to amplify its voice on the need to contribute not just finance, but ideally finance that helps de-risk and blend and reduce the costs of adapting to climate change, but also investing in delivering continued improvement in services for people. And the rest of this week, we will be here to talk about water in the World Water Forum. And that is a very good example of a good that is absolutely necessary for the lives of individuals and households, for businesses to operate. But at the same time, climate change already is affecting water availability. In some countries, we have too much, and in some countries, we have too little. There's more floods and more droughts, all exacerbated by climate change. So these two topics are actually quite related, and it's good to see Indonesia playing a leading role in this dialogue. As we were discussing earlier today, investing in the better balance between prosperity and growth and environmental management will require resources. I'll speak about a couple of examples. The first is energy transition. And I know that it will be a focus today. It really exemplifies the challenge of mobilizing sufficient resources to support growth with continued demand for energy resources that an economy like Indonesia, like most developing countries, will have. You still need to reconcile that demand with sustainability. And that means that economies such as the Indonesian economy will need to find ways to reduce the carbon footprint of its growth. Of course, each country is different. Each country has different endowments and initial conditions, but it is only right that developed countries lend a hand to developing countries to help them continue to develop and at the same time reduce their carbon footprint. And Indonesia is certainly making efforts in that direction, as are many other developing countries. So it is also, in a way, encouraging to see that in the past year, we've had a very significant increase in investments in renewable energy. In 2023 alone, the world invested $1.8 trillion in clean energy. A large part of those investments were in the developed world, and a very large part of those investments were also in China. China making a huge investment in clean energy. So there are initiatives that are moving the world in the right direction. But this will require more investment and more effort. And so in some ways, we will need, for all countries to meet their climate commitments, a significant scale up of renewable energy, which will require help. And that's where blended finance will come in. On water security, we as I said earlier, we will be spending quite a bit of time and effort, we at the World Bank, by providing and scaling up our investments in water resources in poor countries. We have a fund called the International Development Association that provides concessional resources for investments in the poorest countries in the world, and a lot of our investment will go to water in the next few years. Now, concessional resources, I'll conclude here, are scarce. We are at a time when the world is seeing more war. The world is seeing more demand for support that taxpayers will need to contribute to. And so the expectation of how much concessional financing there will be for blended finance have to be moderated. But there are many ways to blend. There are ways to de-risk investments in the early phase of investments when risks are highest. There are also ways to expand and lengthen the tenure of investments by making maturities longer. All of these are ways. The guarantees are another way to de-risk, and we have created a unified guarantee platform at the World Bank Group, bringing all of our balance sheets together to contribute to de-risking investment, and in a way bringing where really investment and financing is, which is in the private sector. Most of the financing will need to come from the private sector. And increasingly, we at the World Bank Group are working to help mobilize those investments into countries so that that riskier phase of investment, the risks are reduced there. So we are ready to play our part. We are very pleased and honored to be part of this partnership. And we want to wish Indonesia and all the partners in this coalition success in this dialogue. Thank you.